back. It's a brand new season of CGL.
This is just an absolute treat. These players are so damn good.
The talent on these teams is undeniable. Everybody on every team right now is making plays.
It's going to be an exciting start to the season, and it'll just get better from here on out.
We're about to step to a whole new era of Overwatch esports. So much exciting action is happening here on CGL that you do not want to miss. Look who's starting it all off, it's Raven.
No one necessarily figure out what is the right way to go just yet.
What a nice roll through from Peyton. He's just going to solidify everything within those.
Does come back, and Arsario gets the mech, but I don't need a mech. I'll kill 4 anyway.
This is just a highlight reel for Arsario right now.
They're making a statement in the EU Masters here.
This patch is still incredibly fresh. There's so much to learn, so much to change about the way we play the game.
NKC, but the shatter is colossal.
Let's get it going.
Trades keep coming through. Laura is going to be able to find these shots true.
Idu on the overclock with 2.
Here comes an Anvil immediately goes back like fine skills, slicing and dicing their way through 2, 3, so back and forth.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the world. It's time for some more CGL action. Deep into week 6 here. Beautiful weekend means we're starting with a beautiful match of Overwatch. I am Megalas. I got a new friend by my side. That is Avalanche. Avalanche, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to getting into this game between one team that's looking to get back up there and Chimera, who looks like they're on quite a roll at the moment.
Yes, indeed. Here in the EU GM tier, EMC Chimera currently on a roll. Hasn't lost a regular season match. Won the mid-season tournament handily. They've got it all going for them. Whereas the 7DS currently just trying to keep their head above water, trying to keep their record good enough to make that playoff berth happen. But you're going through a Goliath here today. But the thing about Goliath is somebody's got to be the one to take him down eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're fighting for your spot, especially when you see a team coming in with, you know, they've got nothing to prove, you've got a lot to prove coming into this. You've got to make sure that you make that bracket and make sure that you are making a statement here today. And no better way to do that than to beat an undefeated team so far this split.
Exactly, no better ways indeed here as we get a quick look at the match schedule. Because fun fact, CGL action just keeps rolling. This is not the only match. We have 7DS versus EMC Chimera right now for the EU side. Over in NA later tonight, you can have Emerald Eagles going against EIG Scouts, so that'll be a fun one as well. And that, again, great thing about CGL, there's always matches happening, always things going on. So, you know, always time to tune in and just chill.
Yeah, absolutely love to see it. So 2 big games for us today, but I mean, we got to start talking with what's going to happen here first. And I believe that with CGL's system, we've already got a map picked out for us of Samoa to start us off here.
Yep, indeed. Just a quick refresher for those at home. Regular season, each week's control map to start us off is predetermined. This week is Samoa. Then, of course, as we go throughout the series, loser gets to pick both the map and mode that we are going to, so it fluctuates a lot from there. So we could be seeing any number of things. But hammering down on Samoa, you know, if you're thinking of cough maps, I feel like this one does kind of go under the radar a lot of the time here. But overall, it's a solid map, I'd say, particularly strong for rush compositions.
Yeah, very good for a rush. You know, the long-ish sight lines compared to some of the other control maps is a bit of a talking point, and with not too much high ground to be able to take, you're going to look at some long angles that are going to be really impactful if you can get the speed control right here. But as well as that, when you're going into the first map, obviously it sets you at such a good standing going into the rest of the maps, knowing that your opponent, if you win that control map, is going to have to take a map off of you.
Exactly, so it's always one of those things where control will just get you off on the right foot every single time if you can come away with it. So now we are going to see the other thing that can impact these maps, of course, the bans, right? Ever since Overwatch has introduced them, it feels like more and more of just sort of a chaotic energy that you can bring. Sometimes you're banning out meta characters, sometimes you target an OTP on the other side, or sometimes you just sort of throw a ban at the wall and see what sticks, you know, at the end of the day, until you really know what these teams are running. Bans really can go all over the place here, but it's going to go ahead and start with a common ban we have been seeing, the Zarya taken out here, which leads me to believe we're definitely going to see some of the D.Va play.
Yeah, and especially with Zarya Vendetta being so strong, being able to bubble in that sort of pseudo dive, it is difficult to deal with, so not a surprise to see that ban first. And as well, if you're a team with a target on your back, like Chimera, that's absolutely going to mean that you could be target banned here. But they've got a ban of their own going between damage and support, so we'll see what they pick as well.
Exactly, being able to fire back, of course, not onto another tank, but you know, across the board here, there are options to look at, right? Normally, you dip into that support category. You want to maybe try to hinder one of the speed characters or something to that effect. But actually, it's going to be a Lifeweaver ban here. Interesting play, to say the least here. You don't exactly see that one come out all too often. But hey, maybe 7DS has been playing a bit of the Weaver and EMC got a read on it. Or EMC is just, you know, not wanting to hinder themselves with a support ban necessarily. Keep all their options open and just take something out that nobody's really expected to play.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to run the basic Lucio carry that we're seeing a lot of and have been seeing a lot of for a long time, it's not a surprise to just see a throwaway ban here, especially with the fact that you can't ban a tank after the Zarya ban from 7DS. But at the same time, you know, there are some certain comps where the Lifeweaver can work if your plan is to just win one fight and then essentially not lose the rest of them. You know, you don't have to win out every single fight on control, but if you're not losing them and you're not losing control of the point, that point's just going to slowly tick in your favor to where it just becomes a, can we get them off the point for a couple of seconds to make sure that that overtime goes down?
Could not agree with you more there, because again, control, it is just one of those, you know, cheeky little modes. A little percent here, a little percent there will go a long way. But we'll go ahead and get a look at the lineups here on the side of 7DS. We've got Gamer and Sizz on that DPS line, Dovahkiin on tank, and then Peckman and Wint rocking that support line here. And overall, again, this squad, they are doing pretty well. 3-2 record overall. I think this is a team that definitely can punch up and keep going for a postseason berth, but it's just you have such a hard opponent on the docket today.
Yeah, absolutely, and you've just got to make sure that you're not scared coming into this game. The other team comes with a lot of precedent, you know, coming in undefeated, but you guys know that you can win games. You've won 3 this season so far, so what's stopping you from sort of coming in and at least putting in a good showing, if not winning, and potentially making a matchup, if it comes back to it in the playoff brackets, a little bit more scary for Chimera and give them a little bit more to think about.
Speaking of Chimera, we can get a look at their lineup here. Obviously solid. They've been around the CGL scene for quite a while now. You got Tom Mikita and Saikoka on that DPS line. Ektash reliable on the tank as always. And Octo and Abrix, I should say, on that support line here. Again, this is a core that's been around CGL, I mean, pretty much as long as I've been here. You know, they've constantly been trying to battle to be the best here, and it seems like they finally found a meta where they can hit their stride running.
Yeah, absolutely. And tides do turn with different metas, but once you're in one, especially with a tournament with multiple seasons, you've got to make the season that you are in the right meta count, and so far that's exactly what they're doing, as well as being undefeated in the regular tournament. You've got the mid-season bracket as well that they were able to sweep, so looking dominant so far, but will it be 7DS to knock them off their crown?
Exactly. You know, if any time is the time, it could be now for 7DS, but of course, EMC Chimera, they just want to keep coasting. They want the perfect season. You know, they still have lost maps here and there, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. This is not an immortal squad yet, but you're certainly pushing for it here. And as we get into Samoa here, honestly, again, we're going to be expecting what originally was going to be some rush brawl variants, but also could be a bit fast-paced. Knowing with the Zarya ban, you could have that D.Va in play here, really just sort of being a menace with no laser to take it out.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to play the D.Va into the Zarya, so that could be what 7DS are looking at trying to do, but as we start to head into Samoa, we'll see how these bans shape out and see what these two teams decide to do with the remaining hero pools.
Exactly. Starting out on Volcano here, I feel like this Volcano, it always reminds me of Mauga specifically here. Not sure if that's what we're going to be seeing, but you think of the line fired up like a Volcano here, and you might as well live that one out a little bit more vicariously here. We're getting a look in the spawn room currently. 7DS currently on what is considered pretty much the laissez-faire standard meta for the time being here. You got the Sojourn, the Tracer, you got your Lucio Kiri. Meanwhile, EMC on the other side being a little bit creative with it. eCash coming out on the Orisa, something we don't see all too often. But that Orisa is definitely going to have some good speed with Octo being the one to move him around.
Yeah, the early stage towards the high ground, or high ground-ish of this map, as they look to push forwards, and you got to be careful with that defense matrix. You can't keep that up forever. Sayoka already looking towards the backline as well, with Winch going down super low, just about gets around the corner. But it's relentless from Sayoka trying to get in there, and in the meantime, Ekash has been able to hold down the front line. This means that Ton Mikida can push forwards, as it looks like the first point is going to go in Chimera's favor to start off with.
Yeah, and it was just EMC Chimera getting to take angles there. You saw, you know, Saikoka on the Tracer being a sort of a pester to the D.Va, but then also switching the pressure over onto Wince, making so Lucio could not focus on healing instead of just self-preservation, taking that source away from the rest of the team here. Now on the approach, already you've lost one.
Yeah, you get Gamer just caught out trying to find the off angle with the Lucio for support, but in the end they both get taken down by Saikoka, who is running the show on that Tracer so far, just finding the timings perfectly.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to come down to Sizz trying to mark this Tracer. Even if you're not necessarily coming up with the kills, you just want to be able to just sort of keep Saikoka's attention, right? That's sort of the name of the game with the Tracer duel, why you engage in it, even if you're a Tracer that doesn't feel like you can match up. Now with a swap over to the Mauga, however, there's going to be an attempt to try to burst down this front line, but eCash has a Fortify and other tools ready to keep him alive.
Yeah, the push in is already there, and Winch, despite not being stuck, still goes down to the Pulse Bomb as a quick trade onto that by Sizz, so good job there of making sure that the Tracer's not too running rampant, but that just means that there's space for the others to shine, and Tom Mikida and Ekad combining just to make sure that the door is well and truly shut.
Yeah, that's just tragic for Wince, I guess. Potentially the wall ride went a way that you didn't want it to. But that is the start of what you want to do, right? You notice that Saikoka isn't doing the normal split with Octo, right? Normally you see those Tracer Lucios operating together. So take advantage of that. Send Sizz in with Winch. Make it a 2v1. And if you can get these picks on Saikoka, the rest of the team really can work.
Yeah, Suzu already forced out, and that's a good start. Taking down that Kiriko, it means that the sustain's not there, and finally, it looks like the tides are turning into 7DS's favor as they start to pick off Chimera one by one. Eventually, it is going to be the map in their favor, but Saikoka is still around just to make sure that it gets to about 99.
Right there, so it is that one fight territory. 7DS is going to have to battle all the way back. We're looking at the ult economies. We've got some pretty even matches across the board. Both teams with a Kitsune rush close to a sound barrier as well here. So that sustain going to be very heavy in these fights, and trying to find a pick through it is going to have to be the name of the game for one of these teams' DPS players.
Yeah, there is going to be a lot of sustain in this fight, but they start it off with the jewel of the Kitsune rushes. There is the sound barrier, charged slightly quicker, but that means that it's a slightly better beat for Octo, and now pushing forwards. They're just running them over on the point, and it doesn't matter what Sizz can do. I mean, if you're getting the Suzu to stop that stick from happening, then everything is going well for you, and it doesn't look like there's any way back for 7DS on this first point, and no, there isn't. Chimera showing everyone why they're undefeated so far.
Yeah, Chimera played that fight beautifully, right? Especially with so much pressure that went onto Dovahkiin. That Mauga, you know, feels a little bit immortal sometimes, but catching him without the cardiac overdrive, as well as just sort of forcing the charge run right away, it then just left that health bar so low that even the Suzu, the sound barrier, wasn't enough to keep it alive when that railgun came through with the rest of the follow-up damage from EMC. And once you lose the tank, it really is just going to be a matter of picking everybody else off one by one because of how many resources were expended into keeping the tank alive. Now, heading into our downtown, we are watching both teams, you know, pretty much keep it the same from how they ended that round here. As everybody gets a little bit stuck from the Symmetra teleporter, but it's okay. They're not stuck for long.
Yeah, they're able to make it here, and they stage once again towards the same part of the map, just looking to poke out so far. And with Tom Mikita looking to take an off angle onto this high ground, trying to get some value from this, but not too much to be found so far. But Gamer's the first one to find someone. Octo going down early means that there's a bit of aggression that can be put onto Chimera that can't be substantiated by their main support. With them gone and Gamer doubling up as well, both supports down. I mean, Octo should be back quickly, but if they can keep this pressure rolling onto Ekhads, that's exactly what they do. And this is a lot of a better start here for 7DS.
70 has played that incredibly well, where they sort of were willing to play it slow, play the rotation game, because it meant forcing those important cooldowns out of Ekhads, right? It's very important to get things like the Fortify out of the Orisa before you try to go for a full-on engage, because otherwise she's just going to be able to click that button, have all that damage mitigation, live through pretty much anything while the rest of her team goes to work here. So good focus fire to find the Orisa's weakness here. Now heading into this next one, you do have 7DS again in that favorable position where they're probably just going to be taking the rotation war, and EMC is going to be the one that has to figure this out.
Yeah, Scissors lurking back in the backlines, and the rest of the fight takes place on point, and just an absolute assassination of Tom Mikita with the help of Gamer. And with that pulse bomb already built up, the Tracer looks like it's switching over to the sides of 7DS in terms of who's getting the favorability of that Tracer duel so far.
Yeah, and it's so good to see it from Sizz, right? Just being able to step up like this, as well as the rest of the team really managing to deal with Saikoka a lot here. You're seeing a lot of times the Kirikunai being the thing that comes and gets this kill onto the Tracer here. Now, as we head into a heavy ult fight, though, these Tracer pulse bombs could actually be the determining factor.
Yeah, and they've been able to burst out Tom Mikita as well very quickly into these fights. But it's Gamer that goes down first, and look at that damage that they've already got on the Mauga. Just has to back away, and the sound barrier's in as well. And it's needed, and just the ult dump from both teams is going to happen. But in the 1v1s, it's still trading out 1-for-1 here. Tom Mikita and Ekhads just finding the kills eventually. That looks like it's going to lead them in their favor, but they can't peek at the moment. The tank's down low, eventually does get held back up by DBRX, and now they do have the point under their control.
Yeah, and now EMC, while they do have the point, they are going to be, you know, a little bit at a disadvantage, right? Forcing out the Terror Surge like that is something you definitely wanted to hang on to, especially with Dovahkiin going to be coming into this fight with a cage fight. It's really going to be on Octo to try to build this last 10% of the sound barrier to keep everybody alive through that ult.
Sis has to be careful in this 1v1 as well. Already forced to recall, but onto a bit of lower health. But Gamer just decides that, oh, I'm taking things into my own hands. Just absolutely running rampant on the point. And with the help of that overclock, the rest of the team just sweep up the kills. And 7DS look dominant here.
Yeah, they finally look like they got some rhythm going here. EMC, though, their upside right now is they didn't have to expend anything in that fight while they lost it. They did get out both the overclock and that Kitsune Rush, whereas they're going to be able to come to this fight with their own combination of those same ultimates here, as well as the sound barrier for sustain now for the cage. So even though it's 99, they can do this.
Yeah, the cage used early, and that's not a bad idea, but it doesn't work. And just the over acceptance of, we have the ults, we can run this through you. Both support ults use, but DPS ults are there to try and keep this point in their hands.
Yeah, and so now EMC going to be holding on to things, like you said, both DPS ultimates in their back pocket. Winch now on the other side of this Lucio pressure situation here, where you are trying to build up to this sound barrier. And again, a beautiful little clear onto Saikoka here. This the 7DS has really improved about how they are handling Psychoka and making sure that there's not this insane value getting away for free from the Tracer.
Yeah, but speaking of insane value, that Javelin off the map's just going to buy them so much time, and without any ults used, you have lost this team fight. With your tank going down so early, you can't be having that. Even if you're trying to scout and make sure that Psychoka can't get anything with this pulse bomb, you can't let that happen. Now they try and restage towards the point, and this is going to be where it gets critical. What can you do with this pulse bomb, Sizz? Because a lot of this is going to be on you. The engage is now in. Dovahkiin is on the point, but Ekaz is just going to hold things down, playing around this central area, while Ton Mikita can just shove in this overclock from the high ground, but the sound barrier is going to do a lot to save him, and Dovahkiin is able to find it, finds two as well. That little unit that was playing on the high ground just completely locked out of things, and now with that pulse bomb, it gets two as well, and where it looks so dire for 7DS on this point, it looks like they're turning things in their favor. Psychoka just tries to get a touch, can't get there, forced the recall, and even though he kills Sizz after the round's over, it's exactly that, and we're going to be heading to the third point of Samoa.
Yeah, again, a little bit too close for care rather there, with Dovahkiin's health bar dropping incredibly low, but at the right place at the right time, being able to follow up, help get those eliminations, and again, you know, taking advantage of some of the immobility of Ekaz here, unlike, you know, the Malga who's got this charge to be able to get around every couple of seconds when the cooldown's up. Ekaz really doesn't have anything like that on the Orisa, almost sort of stuck in place, so if you force the Orisa cooldowns, take the fight elsewhere, it really can be a determining factor. As we move over to Beach, again, neither team making any swaps, they're sticking with what they know besides these traditional TPs, and right now I'm kind of wondering what EMC's game plan is.
Yeah, you've got to find something slightly different. You know, your DPS were doing so well to start off with, but they've fallen off a little bit, and that's a lot to the favor of 7DS, as they've been able to scout out, especially Psychoka, pretty well, but as the engage comes in onto Gamer, just tries to get away. They force the Suzu as well after that slide, just doesn't go quite to plan, and well, you've lost your Sojourn, you're still in this fight. You're just trying to find the advantage here. Psychoka and Sizz battling it out on the point, but they're still there, and Octo's down low as well. That forces the Suzu and means that you can't get rid of this burn onto Ekaz. Still staying alive here, and they've done well to just make sure that they don't lose this fight out, considering that they lost their Sojourn so early, and eventually, when the time was right, they struck at the perfect moment.
Yeah, I mean, the 7DS squad, like, the adjustment that's been made from first round to the last round and then now is really just sort of flipping the location of the fight on a dime, right? You know, forcing those resources, then realizing, hey, look, the Kiri just TP'd to point, the Orisa's on its own, let's go ahead and focus it down, and just being able to get away with things like that time and again here, it's sort of leaving EMC Chimera constantly isolated on these islands after their resources are forced.
Yeah, and you lose Psychoka earlier in the fight as well. It's a massive amount of burst damage. I don't know if it was a right click from Gamer onto that, but eventually you do lose out your Tracer, but that's a big pick going the other way. Ekaz is able to isolate Dovahkiin, and now hopefully you can charge through onto the rest of the point, but going down low and stuck here, even without the tank, they don't need him at the moment with the way that Gamer and Sizz are playing. They're doing well to at least stabilize this point for now, and with the help of Peckman as well, Sizz is calling the shots.
Yeah, right now, 7DS, they are operating on this, it feels like a faster paced game. Once again here, EMC really struggling a little bit to try to keep up tempo with what they're being thrown right now. Tom Mikita going to be switching off of the Sojourn over to the Emre, trying to do a little bit more damage, maybe trying to burst down onto somebody here. As we're, again, in a Tracer duel, look at how much Psychoka is having to dedicate to try to get onto Sizz, and Sizz just doesn't even care half the time.
Yeah, Sizz just runs away, and the fact that Sizz is able to survive there is absolutely astounding, to be honest. Down so low, does get the pulse, but with that Terror Surge, I think Ekaz has just won the point entirely for Chimera, and eventually they do get back on the board.
Yeah, and that was expensive for both squads there, so EMC kind of comes out ahead of that one, using, you know, being able to force both the cage fight and the Kitsune rush from the side of 7DS, all for naught in that situation. Now we're going to have matching sound barriers as well as an overclock for Gamer here, so it's going to be one of the things of trying to get pressure onto Octo, see if we can force that sound barrier to really let Gamer open this up and work after.
Yeah, well, the question is as well, can you afford to lose another fight with 82%? They're just trying to keep them at bay in this hut at the top of the high ground. As the beat comes in, the beat engages there, and it's matched in turn by Octo, but already down solo. And you can see the burst damage of these two teams, how much they're able to do. Game's not able to do anything with this overclock. It's a good job to make sure that the team can't push out of that little hut there, and at the end of the day, they are able to fully mitigate that, and you can see Tom Mikida is almost able to take control of the point with the ultimate of their own.
Exactly, you're going to have that override protocol coming in for this fight here. The only ult on the board for either squad. It's going to be incredibly difficult for 7DS to push through this. And it seems as though EMC, they've really formed sort of a wall that's hard to break through right now. But if you're going to lose a fight for the side of the 7DS, it has to be now.
Yeah, and Sis trying to find something going in there, trying to get onto the backline, and DeviantArt just says, no, absolutely not. Kunai straight to the head and sent back into the spawn doors. The Tracer will be back quickly, so you have some time here, but you don't have that long with no ultimates on the board. You're going to be absolutely at the mercy of Tom Mikida and how much this override protocol can do. Eventually, they do find their way to the point, but down from the low ground, and this means that none of the rest of the team can follow Dovahkiin out of that little choke point, and no gamer gets one. How much more can you do? This override protocol raining down, switch it to the side. I'm just about able to finish off the kill, and the kill feed is lighting up red for EMC Chimera, giving a bit of a scare on Samoa, but at the end of the day, they are potentially going to be able to finish this one out, and with it on 99, I don't think anyone else is going to be able to touch.
Yeah, probably far closer than they would have liked, but they get the job done there in map number 1 here. But again, 7DS, they had some good stuff going, but EMC, again, with that adjustment, especially on Beach, you know, like I was talking about, sort of becoming a wall instead of allowing them to continually keep flipping the point, flipping where the fight was. They just said, let's just fight together, not give them the option to isolate a target, and it worked out pretty dang well here. So now it's just a matter of how this is going to be dealt with as we move forward in this series here. 7DS gets their pick of the board in terms of maps here, and from what it seems to me, Avalanche, we're going to be seeing them try to up the tempo even more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a pretty close matchup. Eventually, EMC Chimera just able to bunker and make sure that they're not forced into those disadvantaged fights, because you saw a lot of the time that they were playing in separate pods. You had the Soj and the Lucio just off to one side, trying to find some way of getting onto the backline of 7DS, but that was what was working for 7DS, is that they were able to go, look, we can see this pod of 2, we can overrun them and make sure that they don't make it out and make it back to the rest of the team. And it's felt like when EMC Chimera switched, especially over to the M-Ray, and they were just able to sit in their own pod of 5 and bunkered up, 7DS wasn't able to get anything from Sizz on that Tracer that potentially those first picks were coming from. And at the end of the day, they just, it was a little bit too hard for them to break down. So I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, they tried to up the tempo more going into map 2.
Yeah, it seems like a faster play was working for them until EMC again found a way to slow down the game here. But it's one of those things of having to sort of consider all options available to you. I will say, considering how that map went, 7DS obviously starting on the Diva, ended up going over to the Mauga pretty early and sticking through it. Sort of ends up being a waste of the Zarya ban because you're not playing that Diva style. So now with those bans back in play as well, that's another level you're going to have to consider here for this next matchup, because when you have things like the Zarya taken out of play, it really is going to force your hand one way or another. And the Zarya also could have been a pretty decent answer to the Orisa as well. Ended up going to the Mauga in the end, but just on paper it definitely would have helped.
Yeah, it's still there for you. Obviously, you're not too worried about Lifeweaver coming back into the pool, unless you're really worried that it's going to take you 5 years to be able to take down the entire team and not be able to force a team kill. But I don't think that's too much of a worry for both of these teams, considering how systematically they were able to win fights once they got the first pick most of the time. So, yeah, the Zarya is the main thing, and especially if you felt like this Mauga was working so well, you do need to have a bit more of a grounded map to make sure that he works. So it's gonna give you less opportunity to get away from the Zarya if that's what they decide to choose. And if the Zarya's there, that probably means that the Vendetta's there as well. Obviously, we saw both teams using Tracer to their advantage on Samoa, but if you decide to switch over to the Zarya, just being able to bubble in that Vendetta just seems so strong at the moment.
Yeah, and so it's just going to be one of those things that people have to sort of consider as we look forward in the series here, as we are just simply yapping, waiting to figure out what's going to be happening, where we're going, and things like that here. Because again, you know, you have the entire pick of the entire board. There's not really any locked game modes or anything like that. You truly can go anywhere in the game as long as it's in the map pool, of course. And I'm interested to see exactly where they end up going. But yeah, until then, we're just kind of twiddling our thumbs personally.
Yeah, I think we do have a map here. There we go. We're going to New Junk City, and of the two maps in Flashpoint, probably the one where you're able to run a bit closer quarters. The sightlines are a little bit narrower, but the fact that you can sort of approach all of the points with so many different angles is something that potentially EMC Chimera is going to try and exploit, and we saw that trying to exploit the angles didn't go too well for them when 7DS realized and was able to scout out the DPS and where they were trying to play from.
Yeah, so, you know, again, like you said, by sort of scouting out where people were trying to play from and stuff, it is going to hopefully be factored in here where because that's a habit that's so easy for teams to drop map to map. That's something you really have to keep at the front of your mind at all times here. Speaking of things that might be on the flank here, no Reaper in sight here for New Junk City. I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time, like, I feel like there's other places that ban could have gone, but sure, no Reaper guy.
Yeah, and I believe we got a sneak peek of what Chimera banned as well, and they're going for some of the lesser known supports in the pool, shall we say, in terms of higher level play. So Mercy out of there as well as the Lifeweaver on the first ban. And is this potentially them saying, you know, we feel like we can beat you with no bans here?
Potentially, but I mean, after that first map, I don't know if I would be this confident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you definitely did just get rocked a little bit in terms of what you were expecting on that map number 1. So to still have this confidence if you're EMC, it's like, yeah, you still can, but I don't know if you should be just yet. But hey, it's their call at the end of the day.
Yeah, you sort of expected to come out with the knockout blow to start off with, and you've been taking the full 3 rounds of Samoa. I don't think you can have quite the confidence that you think you have coming into this, but at the end of the day, they're still happy to run what they're running, and they're happy to not take anything off of the tank pool. And considering tank was open to them, surely you would have thought that that was going to be where the ban was going to come from.
Yeah, and so, again, it's one of those things where you really are questioning that sort of wasted band. If EMC comes away with a map loss, you know, is this something they're going to be thinking about heading forward here? But it's one of those things where you've made your decision, you can't necessarily regret it. Or, you know, it also could be, you know, any number of things here. I will say, going back to the map pick, especially for a Flashpoint map, New Junk City certainly is, like, probably the least favorite of the 3, being the common opinion. So being able to take teams here, if you're confident on it, is certainly going to be a sort of a plus in the right direction, especially if you want to keep running this Malga comp.
Yeah, I mean, if it's somewhere that you don't see other teams play that often, they're going to be sort of waiting and trying to make sure that they know what they're doing in certain situations rather than having the confidence. And if you know about these angles, you can absolutely use them to your advantage on this map.
Yes, indeed. So EMC Chimera going to be coming out back on the Sarissa comp, but already instead of the Sojourn, we're just going to run out on the Emray immediately. Gold gun to boot here. This is a vintage classic with the gold guns of today and things like that, having the classic gold gun. But overall, look at this. Already just saying, nope, we don't want you on the flank. We're acknowledging you.
Yeah, immediately just forced out of bounds, but they forget as soon as they decide to move on to Tom Mikita, they just forget about him. And it means that Gamer goes down immediately. The grenades did a huge amount of burst damage, and they can't fight this point with a player down at the moment. And they try and flip it onto the backline. They're trying to push forwards onto the backline here, but again, they've done a good job of just making sure that there's no one that's left for Dovahkiin to pick out. And even though Sizz wins the Tracer 1v1, at the end of the day, they're losing the rest of the team. And if your Tracer's the only one winning the fights, it's not going to end well for you.
Won't end well indeed here. 7DS now has to commit to a full reset. Meanwhile, EMC just going to continue to hold inside of the point here. And I think, again, it's going to come back to one of those things of either forcing out resources like the cooldowns from eCash or just playing around the Arresta, like just running away from it. As you try to rush out to Mikita.
It's just not allowing Gamer to play the game. You know, you name yourself after what you want to do, but the namesake's not there. And even with the sustainability of the Malga, just the amount of damage that this team is able to put out is overwhelming, and it looks like this first point's going in their favor unless Sizz can potentially touch. I don't think that's going to come out. 95%, it's ticking over. It looks like they're just going to set out for second.
Heading up for a second here, along with Gamer going over to the Emre himself, trying to see if maybe that will be the key in the ticket box here. Meanwhile, EMC has built up to a plethora of ultimates, and 7DS lagging behind is going to make this next fight very difficult, despite the fact that they already have the positioning on the point. They just don't have these key tools like EMC does heading into this fight.
Yeah, they've got good positioning for the moment, but how long is it going to take them to run you down when they've got 4 ults on the board, almost 5, and Winch is the only one, along with Sizz, that has anything for you. The Terror Surge doesn't really find too much, and Sizz has been able to take out the opposing Tracer, but how much can you do? And with Dovahkiin going down, again, they're just able to run them over, and it feels like they've just been in the ascendancy here. It looks like that Mercy ban is not something that they're going to have to worry about too soon.
From how it's going for EMC, it seems like it was a decision well worth it at this point. And as well, again, EMC being so frugal, only having to use 2 ultimates in that fight, still having these other ults to work with, like the Sound Barrier and the Override Protocol. But now we have to see what the plan is as Sizz back on this flank, trying to be a little bit of a menace, very akin to what Tom Mikita was doing in that first round.
Yeah, the pulse comes in though onto Winch, and not being able to get that sound barrier down in time means that it looks like it's another fight lost for them. And again, only off the back of 1 ultimate as they try to get back into it, but you're just sent packing immediately. Psychoka has just been able to mark the rest of the team really well, and even with the valiant effort that Sizz is putting in, you've not been able to do too much in the way of point progress. They're going to get back to the point here, and the Kitsune Rush is shoved in just to try and give them something. Double support ults used, but with that sound barrier landing onto Tom Mikita, it's not the pressure that Sizz would have wanted. He just forced them off point for the moment, and with Dovahkiin diving into the backline, they try and find the pressure onto Ekad instead, and found out is the tank of Chimera, but perhaps they're trying to do too much here, trying to force the progress too far. Eventually, the DPS duo that we saw working so well for 7DS on Samoa is going to find their targets, but boy, did it take a lot.
Yeah, it took a lot, not just in terms of, you know, the raw power, time on the point, but also, again, expending such a heavy ult bank, whereas EMC Chimera, they get to just hold on to pretty much everything still coming into this next fight. I've talk about it time and again how frugal EMC are being here and managing these ult resources beautifully, but about engaging here, it's now just going to be looking for these key pickoffs since you're already at 99.
Pegman's down so low just to start the fight. The Kiriko just has to try and hide, and you've got nowhere to hide if you've got Ekad just diving in with that spear spin, just making sure that there's nowhere for those supports to run. And even though they do put in a couple of ultimates that they potentially didn't need, they get that second point locked down for them.
Only needing 1 more now. 7DS going to have to complete a reverse sweep of the map to get Flashpoint going their way here. Heading into the next point, already EMC, we see them established on this high ground, good positioning to boot here, where 7DS is going to have to be fighting their way in, but some good pressure onto the Orisa means that this is going to be an opening for 7DS, but they have to be courageous enough to take it.
Yeah, and this is one of the first times in this map that they've had the advantage in terms of ults, and a nice stick by Sizz just means that Tom Mickett is out of the equation, and that's the only ult that Chimera has coming into this. And despite their good positioning at the start, they're forced back off of this high ground, and with Gamer just being able to shove damage down the throat of a Kaj, without that Orisa being able to get away as easily as potentially that Malga could from an engage, it's going to be 7DS locking down the point in their favor.
Yeah, and being able to win out that poke war and then go ahead getting and just making the exclamation point be that pulse bomb, it's what you love to see in terms of just synergy, right? Just constantly making sure everybody is on the same page. EMC, though, now on their approach. Saikoko trying to create some of that magic on the other side here. Acknowledging everybody's there, so may just have to be the one to sort of force a different angle to give the rest of the team a reprieve in attention to get them in.
Yeah, Sizz is so knowledgeable about it, though. Means that Saikoka's just got nowhere to go on the first initial engage, and you can see the rest of the team is trying to engage here. Octo just decides to pop the beat, but it's a better beat from 7DS, and with Gamer just popping that override protocol, not long on this earth is left for Ekaj, and with them on 70% as well, it looks like it could be them fourth packing, and they might have to reevaluate how they're doing on this map so far.
Slight reevaluation potentially here, but I necessarily wouldn't be like worried about it at the end of the day, because you did force that sound barrier. So the next fight, EMC Chimera has that massive advantage where pretty much any one of their ultimates should be able to secure kills without that huge sustain tool there. That being said, if EMC does not come away with this first cap, then you have to start wondering what's going wrong and where these resources are being dedicated. As again, it feels like they're getting a little bit split.
Yeah, but that's just devastation right there. No one's going to be able to sustain themselves through that. Dovahkiin just gives up, and I mean, why wouldn't you? As they head back towards the point and start their capture.
Lethal combination there. Again, you just have the Emre shooting from the skies, almost like an AC-130 from back in the day, but now 7DS at the very least still has their ultimates to their name, including this cage fight. Cage fight really hasn't been that successful at locking down major members and helping get a limbs like it normally is, but of course that potential is always there.
Oh yeah, but they stick the pulse onto Dovahkiin and just not the survivability to stay alive in that cage. They do put in the Kitsune Rush as well, just to make sure of it, and it's going to mean that their ult bank is dry for the next fight, but with Sizz and Dovahkiin losing theirs as well, Peckman's the only ult on the board.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where EMC wants to play this. You see how far up they are right now. If they actively choose to commit the fight here, I necessarily wouldn't hate it, just because you're looking to try to force this Kitsune Rush. The closer this Kitsune Rush from Peckman gets to point, the worse it is going to be for EMC. Forcing this fight earlier or getting kills like that could be massive.
Yeah, I mean, they need to win this fight, right? The 77%, it's not like Control. You can't just wait for it, and Gamer's already down so low. So many criticals on the side of 70F, and even with Gamer finding that pick, it feels like they're going backwards in terms of fighting against the tide. Sizz is going to do what he can as well, just trying to keep that point alive for the moment. Winch gets the Lucio diff onto Octo, forcing him off the map, but again, just Aircat holding down this point. Sizz is going to have to do absolutely everything. Does have a recall in pocket, but with that Javelin landed onto the Tracer, it's going to be an exclamation point as EMC Chimera go up 2-0 in this first of 4 series.
Yeah, it's looking much better for EMC right there, being able to do what they needed. And again, that's the EMC that we expected, sort of aggressive, being able to hold their off angles, dismantle their opponents with relative ease time and again here. So you love to see that for them. 7DS backs against the wall now, as they will need a reverse sweep if they want to come away with the win here. It's going to just be an uphill battle.
Yeah, and the more you fall behind here in terms of the maps, the worse it's going to get for you realistically. You still do have another map pick coming up for you, but we're going to be leaving you on a little bit of a cliffhanger to see where 7DS decides to go next as we go to a quick break.
Welcome.
Back with us, sorry. We are back here with week 6 of EUGM, where we have 7DS and EMC Chimera duking it out, with Chimera taking the spoils so far. But 7DS do have the map pick coming back in their favor, and they're going to try and flip the momentum that's happened so far here in this matchup.
Yeah, exactly. They're wanting to try to change things up. Obviously, you don't want to go out 0-3. Sorry, you'd love to get a map win on the board here, but again, you're going up against one of the best teams, if not the best team right now in this EUGM tier, so you're just going to have to keep on pushing if you really want to succeed here. That being said, we do have our next pick written down in the books here. It is going to be over to Hybrid, as we are going to Midtown.
Yeah, and I mean, 7DS, you look to take some momentum from the maps that you've had so far, and you can see that they've taken a capture point on both of the maps that they've lost already, so it's not as if they've had nothing to show for their efforts so far, and they have made EMC Chimera sweat a little. Samoa was actually incredibly close between the two teams, so you try and go to Midtown. They've been trying to make this Malga work so far, and the question is, are you going to try and stick to it, or is it going to be something that you try and switch up going into the next map?
I have to imagine this is an attempt at a swap, right? When you think of Midtown, especially across first and second point, this really can be a very poke-oriented map, so you think more of the Sigma or the Domina coming in to sort of be a problem, which both can certainly work well against the Sarissa composition, because overall it hasn't been moving too fast here. So, you know, if you can't outspeed the game like you were intending to, then just slow the game down even further could be the game plan here. With that being said, 7DS, if they are intending to play a poke style, they're probably going to want to find ways to hinder. I don't know if you want to necessarily go straight out for the Orisa ban, but potentially trying to get something like the Emre or something like that, or even the Lucio to remove that speed option would be a phenomenal play.
Yeah, speaking of slowing the game down, the Lucio's gone, so speed control is not going to be something that they have to worry about quite as much. And then we'll see what Chimera have decided to ban in a second. Obviously, we've seen the couple of potentially throwaway bans so far, so will it be another in terms of an out-favored hero, or will it be something that they actually potentially want to ban here? Because we've always seen them ban so far as Mercy and Lifeweaver, and those two have been nowhere near the meta for quite some time.
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere from the meta, but again, I feel like EMC potentially it's just kind of banning things to ban things, banning out the Widowmaker. Now, if this is a poke composition, this could actually be an intended, like, trying to hit on something banned here where you don't want to play against the Widow in a poke setting. So that actually potentially could make sense, but of course, you know, following EMC's track record, I would not be surprised if this was just them for the fun of it saying, yeah, we'll get rid of the character just cuz.
Yeah, they've banned out something that could be played, which is a first for this match so far, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more hit scans that are viable at the moment than the Widowmaker in poke and just in general. So still a bit of a surprise if you weren't thinking that, well, if you were thinking that this was going to go to what we've seen so far within the meta, but as these two teams prepare to go to Midtown, it's a bit of a flip in momentum that is needed for 7DS. And to be honest, with the way that Sizz has been playing so far, you'd hope that they can keep Sizz with the hot hand, because the Trace has been looking good despite them losing the first two maps so far.
Yeah. And again, yeah, you have these shining moments and things like that here. So it absolutely is not all doom and gloom for 7DS, right? It's not like a one-sided stomp where, you know, EMC is just getting away with anything and everything they want to do. They are, you know, putting up a fight on the side of 7DS here. It just feels like EMC is just getting the better of it time and again here. But I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, Avalanche. If you want a path forward, it's going to be putting all of your faith in Sizz, put every single egg into that basket, and see what the man can do.
Yeah, and especially if you've got the poke as what they want to run, you do still have the ability to throw a Tracer in there just to try and harass the backline, meaning that the tank maybe can be disconnected from the rest of the team, but it's not the easiest to get in with if the rest of the team is scouting for it. But so far we've seen from Chimera that they decide to play in these situations where they have Octo and either Ton Mikida or Saikoka just as a little offshoot, trying to play isolated. And if Sizz can catch on to that and potentially with some damage from No Name being sent through from the backline on a hit scan character, maybe Sizz can take that opportunity to just combine and take down that little pod that's been working together so far for the side of Chimera and potentially just drive them forward.
Yeah, so that's sort of the hope and the dream here to sort of drive you forward here. But as we get into Midtown, we see 70S on the defense going to be hovering, you know, a sort of composition we were expecting, much more pokey than before here. You have the Domina in play as well as the Ashe over the Sojourn to have that more consistent damage in the longer range. Meanwhile, the support line going to be on that Baptiste Wu Yang combo that we know can just be equally devastating damage dealers, if not more so, than the rest of the team here. EMC, on the other hand, going to pretty much stick with the tried and true, except swapping the backline over to the Juno Brig. That way they still have a speed boost in play, even without their fan favorite Frog.
Yeah, they try and keep it as much as possible, and with the Orisa still there, they're gonna try and close the gap as soon as they can, but Sizz being caught AFK here, Saikoka just finds the Tracer, not really doing too much, waiting for the engage, and it comes to him instead, as Saikoka is now gonna try and force the pressure in, and No Name goes down as well, as I believe we're going to be heading to a quick pause just to potentially find out what happened to Sizz there.
Yeah, potentially got called away at the wrong time, maybe didn't call it out like, hey, something's going on, but that's unfortunately the name of the game there, and being able to just be heads up enough to take advantage of that, as well as the other picks that came through after. Like you were talking about, just the Orisa comp, it needs to bully through the Domina, it needs to sort of close the distance, and it seems like they did that pretty successfully there.
Yeah, and especially when you've got to worry about the war on two fronts. The Tracer coming round through the backline. I mean, the kill onto Sizz, obviously there's something going on there. That maybe Sizz was AFK, or Sizz potentially had like a crash or a Wi-Fi go down for a second. But then the follow-up and the amount of pressure that they were able to put onto the Ashe of No Name, it shows their intent. But just to let you guys know, the pause was due to a player audio bug, and we are going to restart the map just in terms of fairness. But I mean, it's already a statement of intent from Chimera, and they still know that even though you're trying to play it into a poke comp that's going to try and keep you at arm's length, you can still get that Orisa to work here on Midtown as well.
Yeah,
like it might be just a player restart, but still.
Yeah, it's just going to be the restarting of the game for the time being here. Realistically, you know, map restarts don't happen unless something catastrophic's going on. So it's just sort of the nature of it here. But that's all a-okay here. And, you know, it's one of those things of bugs just happen at the most random times, right? We're all playing from home PCs, right? We're not some fancy LAN setter, whatever you want to call it, that everybody, that, you know, some crazy high budget places have. We're all just at home chilling, minding our own business, and so sometimes we have these little tech issues, but it's a-okay. They get sorted out, they get fixed. But in the meantime, I mean, again, we saw what the matchup is going to be. It's going to be still this brawl versus much pokier look here, and again, I don't necessarily know if I agree with it from 7DS, just because their success has been from pushing the tempo, making it faster, and this is going to be their first attempt at really trying to slow the game down, and I don't know if it's going to work well for them.
Well, it hasn't so far in the initial fight, no matter whether it's going to count for much or not. You can see that they're just able to close the gap all too well. The Orisa just able to push through and take the space, and in the meantime, yeah, you have Psychoka just going into the backline, and the Tracer was pretty much untouched on that dive. And it felt like No Name had nowhere to go, and when you're trying to keep him at arm's length, and then suddenly they're sort of, you're in the palm of their hands, you can't really do too much about it. You've got to try and back up and try and play your life as much as possible. But the question is, how much can you do that when you've got them right in your face? And I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do too much. As you said, they've been trying to press the pressure. They've been trying to up the tempo, and they've slowed it down so much that it feels like Chimera just sitting in the middle ground. Even without the Lucio, they still have the speed boost of the Juno to try and close the gap a bit quicker. And it's not mattered so far, and it's whether 7DS tries to adapt to that, tries to go to something that's closer to their own playstyle, maybe even some dive if they really want to go that far. But you've got to see something switched up if the poke isn't able to keep them where you want them.
Yeah, but it's going to be one of those things of just trying to figure out if poke is where they want to be, if it is the practice, if it is the tried and true. That's sort of going to be the name of their game at the end of the day here. So it's just going to be about sort of figuring out how this is going to work moving forward. Because at the end of the day, they've dedicated themselves to this. This is clearly their idea. It's just a matter of seeing how it's going to function in the long term for this matchup.
It feels like you've sort of gone for the Domina shove just to like knock them off balance, show them something that they haven't seen so far. But the Orisa's golden, you know, nothing's making a difference to them. You're still just able to walk through it, and nothing's changed at the moment. So 7DS, I mean, you do have some different ways that you can play the poke. Obviously, the Sigma's there in the back pocket as well. It doesn't have to be the Domina. But you just got to make sure that if most of your players are playing as a group top poke in the backline, that you don't allow Psychoka to just have run of the mill and pick you off one by one.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where you don't want Psychoka, because again, that was sort of the problem on map 1 when you're when you have issues and stuff like that. It was what was happening on map number 1 here, and you found ways to manage it on map 1, and you definitely were doing a better job of it. But like I said, that's an easy habit to sort of drop map to map, in terms of just, you know, forgetting to manage that threat, that constant nuisance in the backline, especially if it's something like a Tracer or something to that effect where it's constantly going to be poking. So, you know, constantly being vigilant about maintaining that habit of just, hey, we need to poke out, scout for the Tracer, not let them get away with any and everything here. But it's just going to be, again, making sure you can keep that habit up instead of just letting it slip time and again.
Yeah, and it feels like they've grown into that on both of the first maps. You know, Chimera looked dominant on Volcano with Samoa, but then you headed to downtown, and it looked like they'd found the ways to make sure that they knew where the DPS of Chimera were with 7DS. And you saw it slip towards the start of New Junk City, but they were able to maintain that, eventually come back to it, and that's how they ended up winning the point that they did win on that map. And it felt like they were doing better with that, but then immediately again, you go into the fight, and it's the first angle that a Tracer's gonna do. It's the immediate default that a Tracer's gonna have coming into Midtown, and you're not looking for it. And it's unfortunate, you know, that you catch the player that's having the issues off guard, and they're taking out AFK just standing there, but we'll see what they decide to do soon. But you can't just let them start on the front foot every single time. Because at the end of the day, Chimera, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and that's what they've done so far this season. It's why they're unbeaten. They find the advantages, and they punish them.
Yeah, and constantly just being this top-tier team. Again, it's EMC Chimera. You think back to their history throughout CGL. This is a team that has sort of been there for a very, very long time. constantly trying to be that top dog, and finally feels like they found their position that allows them to be at the top here, but you know, they still have to prove it beyond that, right? They can't just say that they're the top. They have to keep proving it time and again, day in and day out with every single map as it goes on here. And again, as we're just still stuck in the limbo, waiting to see what's going on with the map in question.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go through a quick recap for anyone that didn't see the first two maps. Samoa incredibly close, down to 99% each going into the final point of, I believe it was Village. And there was just so much going on there. It felt like 7DS was taking the fight to Chimera and pushing forwards and finding that little squad that was breaking off and taking the advantage of going, you know what, they've isolated themselves, we'll take care of this 3 or 2, and we'll fight them as a 5. And that was what they were doing to start off with, and that felt like it was exactly what they were able to do there as well. But as it looks like both teams have agreed to restart the map, hopefully there's going to be a bit more of an awareness towards what Psychoka is going to try and do to start off this first point.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, good sports on EMC to allow that restart despite the massive advantage that they had here. But both teams now, again, aren't just aware of the compositions, but like you said, aware of how it's going to be played with how Psychoka was playing and things like that as well here. Overall, is going to be, is just going to be how they want to play it here. Like you said, meanwhile, in the attacker spawn room, just a little bit of troll, I'm sure. I don't think this Doomfist is actually rolling out, and we'll be just back onto the Orisa momentarily.
I mean, I hope not. I don't want to cast this comp if I'm really honest. The Mercy-pocketed Junkrat would be something for the world to see, but no, they are going to switch back to what they were running to start off with, all a little bit of a troll, and we'll see if Psychoka can work his magic that he was able to start off the first objective the last time we started off this map. It looks like they're looking for it a little bit more, which is nice, but Psychoka there still trying to close the distance, as Ekaj as well is trying to put up a fight to make sure that they're not kept away from the reach. And you can see that just with Sizz being here, they're able to mark out this Tracer a lot better, but with a forced recall, there's so much pressure onto Sizz, but that means that the eyes aren't looking in the right direction, and even Psychoka wins out that Tracer fight eventually, and again, they're just able to run them over, and as the team kill rings out, feels like things haven't changed too much.
Yeah, blink and you miss it, or a sense of deja vu, rather, probably being afflicted to everybody watching, but at the end of the day, it is just the same exact breakdown here. Just good pressure being applied by EMC across the board here, as well as Psychoka. Just taking so much attention, not just the Tracer duel, but even beyond it. Everybody else trying to chime in, and it's just not working out here. Now, 7DS already backed up to this bridge area, going to be trying to play. And they've already actually even given up on the Dominant, just trying to mirror the Orisa, but Orisa just does not work with this poke comp that 7DS has around it.
Yeah, and they look to take the aggression here, but you've already used so much trying to push forwards, and that Immortality field isn't going to let you get back to your team either. Eventually, Dovahkiin is able to back away, which, honestly, a bit of a surprise that EMC allowed that, and with a Ekaj trying to take the pressure to them on the high ground, goes down 1 for 1. DBRX is able to take down Winch as well, but the trades are coming out, and Psychoka just not allowed the space that potentially has been granted to him so far in this map. No Name as well, a nice dynamite landed onto Tom Mikida, and it looks like they're going to be forced back away here.
Forced back into a reset for the time being here, as EMC, you know, still trying to be the aggressors here, but they are certainly being punished for it, as you see Ekaj just a little bit too far forward. Now potentially Dovahkiin on the other side has to be careful of that over-aggression. Going to be interesting to see where the defense wants to hold in this next engagement. You have quite a plethora of ultimates for both squads here, so either team that tries to play it fast here could be at risk of just falling into the ult trap.
Yeah, you can see there those scissors marking Psychoka so much better and just not allowing the Tracer to get that much done. And as I say that, I'm completely proven wrong. Psychoka takes that 1v1, but Bob is in, not quite looking through the window, and it means that Psychoka's just, again, able to just cleave through the backline. And with Dovahkiin trying to get away, this Trace is running the show once again.
Once again, indeed here, Psychoka just being able to take things away here. And look at how much 7DS expends in that fight, right? You had the Amplification Matrix, the Terra Surge, the Bob Ultimate. Meanwhile, all traded out for simply the Orbital Ray. So EMC Chimera sitting pretty on every account right now, as they can just choose to invest whatever they want to cap this point.
Yeah, you've got to try and get an early pick here, but it doesn't quite happen, not quite getting Psychoka down. And with that last ultimate invested as well, they're just trying to put everything in to make sure that they take this point. And, well, the defense isn't there at the end of the day, and with 2 ultimates still on the board as well. And I've seen my fair share of pulses into a Terra Surge that do a considerable amount of damage. The switch is out here, and they're deciding to mirror the backline as well.
Yeah, 7DS is just kind of slowly trying to take a mirror duel here. I don't necessarily think that that's the greatest idea, because it's not like this is a meta comp or anything particular like that. This is clearly something that EMC has sort of carefully crafted and constructed around their personal players. So to just try to pick it up on the same characters and see if you can replicate, it's not exactly the soundest game plan in the world. That being said, though, you do get that first pick thanks to your Ashe.
Yeah, and that's not something they've had since that first fight of second point, is getting ahead early, but Ekaj as well caught in No Name, raining down the headshots from that Ashe, and as that's the only thing that's not mirrored, at least you're getting value out of it. The question is, can the mirror do the rest of the damage? As Psychoka goes down early again. Peckman just finding the final blow, but the pressure that they're able to put in now, it does seem a lot better, as the staging once again here from 7DS, trying to get over towards this clock in the middle of point. No Name trying to get away, goes down low, but has Bob for this next fight. That grenade almost finds something as well, but not able to get there eventually. This pulse bomb, do you need it? No, Peckman down with a single clip, and now with the Terra Surge in as well. It's a sweep up from Psychoka. As much as you try and stay out this Tracer's sight, just in the backline immediately. Sizz goes down as well, and Psychoka, he can't stop him at the moment.
Yeah, and again, it's just not marking these flanks, not even being aware of where Psychoka is. It's just leading to these desperation plays for 7DS now, where their back is against the wall. This payload is moving towards the final checkpoint here. You really have to find some kind of stop here, and you don't necessarily have the tools to do it.
Dovahkiin gonna be caught out here, tries to go for the Terra Surge just to stay alive, and Peckman's found D by RX. And the both supports as well gone immediately for EMC Chimera, so they are going to be sent packing. A good job to try and stay in this map, but 2 minutes left on the clock. You've still got a lot to take down, as Dovahkiin finds Tom Mikita on the way out. Ekaj just has to be careful trying to get away here, just not be found trying to cross back through.
Yeah, but
get back away.
Yeah, Ekaj able to make it out alive is honestly kind of crazy, considering there was literally a point where Ekaj is touching the spawn doors. But again, just being able to have that pressure. Pulse bomb ends up going to waste, like you see there. And again, this Ashe on the high ground does need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's going to be a mirrored Ray. Peckman just waiting for it for the moment. And the pressure onto Tom Mikita means that you can't pop that override protocol just yet. And Sizz is able to take it out of the fight entirely, so the Trace is trading 1-for-1 onto the hitscan DPS. It seems like they don't want to give this one up just yet to EMC Chimera, but DBRX caught away from the rest of the team, just not able to get back. Psychoka just not giving this up though, tries to find Peckman, is going to be forced back to the spawn doors once again, and with Dovahkiin back here, just able to push Ekaj into a difficult situation for the Orisa.
Difficult indeed here as we dip below a minute. EMC, if they want the full cap, they are going to have to find a way to break through the defense that has been stopping them. Again, this Ashe pretty much uncontested. You don't have anybody who can get up there quickly. Besides that, that'll be a nice way to open it up.
Yeah, it's popped immediately, and a heavy bolt here onto Dovahkiin could do a lot, but with the Mirror Terra Surge within each other, they just don't find enough damage, and Sizz decides anything you can do, Psychoka, I can do the same. Sweeps up 3 on the fight, and another team kills. The time's running out for Chimera.
Yeah, both teams now have tapped the ult banks pretty extensively. It's going to be a pulse bomb versus a rally for Octo here, so it's going to be about trying to get over to the objective and then trying to use this rally as some heavy sustain, but getting to the objective is going to be difficult.
Yes, Sizz finds an immediate kill onto Tom Mikida, just making sure that the rest of the team isn't going to be able to find their way there, but Dovahkiin's gone down as well, so a bit of a trade out, so no tank presence here for 70S as ECATS just tries to stay alive here on the point as long as possible, but with no perks in, with that switch towards the Sigma, they're not going to be able to get to third, so where it looked absolutely dire for 70S coming into this third objective, with Chimera being able to burst through their barriers, eventually, they go for the mirror and they're able to stand tall.
Yeah, being able to actually get the stop without the cap there is absolutely massive for the side of 7DS because it gives them a goal in mind to keep this map alive instead of having to worry about overtime rounds or anything like that. As well as, again, Sizz being able to step up in this extra level when you need is exactly what you're looking for here. You notice almost the second Sizz starts popping off is when Psychoka goes quiet. That's because Sizz is taking these Tracer duels and just sort of always being a thorn in Psychoka's side, as well as coming away with the kills a lot of the time in the duel here. It's one of those things where, again, you sort of wonder why it's not happening at all times here. Sizz really needs to be on top of that.
Yeah, it feels like whoever's winning out the Tracer battles winning out the entire battle at the moment, and you see it in the kill feed as well. It's usually those two that are going to be the ones sweeping up the kill when the other one's not there to try and keep them at bay. But 7DS are going to sort of stick with what they were running so far, but it's a Winston pick out from Ekaj of EMC Chimera.
The Winston pick indeed here, trying to see what can be done here. Ekash, I don't know what the Winston's intending to do. Potentially you're trying to play fast as a defense, but I feel like the Orisa's just going to have more staying power, especially with this strategy of No Name trying to teleport them around to safety.
Yeah, the TP play could be big, especially if they're going to try and get onto Tom Mikida on the Ash. Has the coach gun, but at the end of the day, most of the team's able to get up there, but it's No Name who is put out by that coach gun that just completely isolated, and Ekaj is going to take that every single day of the week on the Winston. Sizz is able to post up on this high ground now as the rest of the team wait for No Name to get back out of the spawn, and not the best attempt there from Ekaj to try and find something, and immediately you've lost that tank presence, and just an ill-fated dive up to the top, trying to find potential for just a singular pick onto Sizz, but the rest of the team was ready for it, and without an exit strategy, Ekaj just goes down immediately.
Yeah.
Is able to get back quickly, though. And, yeah, I mean, they're trying to stay on the point here, but there's so much damage coming in from No Name now with that tiered up beam. A one-for-one trade as well. Dovahkiin still up and finding kills. Ekaj eventually is going to find No Name. Can't TP out of that one, but down so low as Ekaj trying to stay on the point. Tries to find the kill onto Winch, but the opposing Brigitte is going to be the one that goes down in the end, and Dovahkiin's taking over on this Orisa.
Yeah, again, and it's just about, I mean, look at EMC Chimera's composition. They really don't have the damage to deal with an Orisa, right? There's nothing that's going to be breaking through. Even an Ashe headshot is only doing so much with that armor health here. The Winston, I feel like, is definitely a misplay at this point, especially the way Ekash is playing it, just so overly hyper-aggressive that you're almost sort of going to be forced to switch any moment now.
Yeah, you're just being found out at every dive opportunity, and I mean, you saw that Mo's trying to dive up to the high ground of that firehouse. It's immediately taken out, but there are a couple of ults on the board here for EMC Chimera, namely the two DPS ults, as they've been putting in work. All the rest of the team has potentially been slacking off a little bit, and you can see the other use of these turrets is going to keep Psychoka at bay. You can't take these off angles without being found immediately, and that right click is going to do so much damage to you. No Name goes down low though. And with this Bob in, they're going to be forced to back away from the point so far. Sizz is just waiting, trying to get some healing, but everything's been put into Dovahkiin, trying to stay alive on the point. And the rally invested just as you lose your tank. Do lose the Brigitte on the other side in turn, though. Psychoka still trying to contest the point, but it's going to be difficult with Winch in that rally. It does eventually burn out, and No Name's not going to be able to do enough damage to deal with Ekaj. They're still in this fight here. This is now the target of Ekaj's aggression, but the Primal popped here, potentially just trying to keep the rest of the team in this one, trying to stagger onto Dovahkiin as well, and eventually that looks like it's going to be what's going to happen. Not the health pack of Winch is going to be able to keep Dovahkiin alive, and nice play there from Chimera.
Yeah, nice way to keep it alive. Like you almost feel like Ekaj maybe could have saved the Primal, right? There was only 2 members of 7DS alive when you pop it, but at the end of the day, you have to do what you feel necessary sometimes here. Meanwhile, still sticking to these teleport strategies, 7DS is trying to move around, but now they're the ones being found out and caught with a dynamite.
Yeah, but with the car wash set up, they're going to split this high ground immediately with this Symmetra ult, and as well with the Terror Surge. You can't touch that side of the point, but it's Sizz that's found out early, just not on the Tracer that we've seen work so well. And it is a question of whether that switch is going to do something for you or whether it's going to hinder you. Eventually, at the end of the day, Psychoka gets a martyrdom realistically onto Winch, and it's going to force the Brigitte to come back from spawn, but a good fight overall from 7DS, even if it was costly to the ult bank.
7DS now trying to move forward here, but they are, going to be short-membered, right? They have that much longer route back for the attacker spawn, and the defender's already engaging.
They're trying to keep Sizz alive, desperately trying to keep that overclock in play. Ekaj is having none of it. Eventually, they do keep the Sojourn alive, but it's not the Sojourn you have to worry about. Eventually, Pac-Man is the first to go down, and Sizz doesn't take long to follow as well. Dovahkiin just trying to hold this angle, but without your Juno in play, it's going to be a slow death for the Orisa. Eventually the last one to be found, but again, they're forced back by Chimera, and you're draining the time bank.
Yeah, you're draining it more and more here. I mean, EMC, we doubted the Winston, but Ekaj seems to have finally figured it out. That pressure isn't coming through. These dives aren't overly aggressive. They're being placed into just the right spot, as well as some beautifully placed bubbles to carve people out and things like that. Teleporting now to the point again. There's only so many times these teleporter shots can work as well here before somebody's going to get isolated.
Yeah, the decision not to pressure the high ground is something that they're trying to switch up, but again, it doesn't matter. Sniper Monkey takes down Sizz to start off the fight, and Dovahkiin, you can't play 5v4 in these fights. You're losing Sizz, or at least there's so much pressure onto the Sojourn that you've not even been able to pop the overclock that you've had for 2-3 fights now. And that's a big ultimate to try and put forwards. The rally does keep Winch alive, but not for long. Ekaj finds the kill at the end of the day, and the aggression that they're able to put through, especially when they know that Sizz isn't there, they know the burst potential of the Sojourn isn't there, and you got 20 seconds left. You got to find something here.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. I don't even know, especially because you're not even on the Tracer anymore. How are you going to get to the objective becomes the next question here. You have a Winston who's guarding you. Even if you drop that HP, the Primal Rage is lying in wait here. So the whole team now having to walk forward, expend all of their cooldowns just to get to the payload.
Yeah, the TP plays there to try and get there, but most of the team don't take it, and they're spread out a little bit. They're found out trying to get to different places. Bob comes in to the point, so there's no need for Ekaj to be there, and it means that Ekaj can try and find everyone else. But Sizz eventually has popped that overclock, and now it could be going huge. It lights up blue in the kill feed for 7DS. Are they going to be able to keep themselves alive here on Midtown? Eventually, it looks like it's going to be the case, but it's taken them to overtime to even be able to find the appropriate time to pop the overclock. It still feels like they're missing this Tracer and the value that they were getting on their defensive side.
Indeed, you also sort of wonder what went wrong for the defense there with EMC. Ekaj ends up not popping the Primal Rage, maybe just took too much burst damage, couldn't even click the Q button in time here, but now a new lease on life, 7DS trying to operate here. They do have some tools to work with, like another wall from the Symmetra as well as an orbital ray, but already missing Sizz once again.
Yeah, it feels like it's the first kill every single fight. Sizz goes down early, and then the rest of the team have to recuperate and wait for that Sojourn to get back. And it's not going to be able for you to keep your tank alive as well, as Dovahkiin just gets bursted down through a ridiculous means. 37 seconds left. You've got to change something up here.
You have to change something indeed. 70S, they've gone over to both the Bastion as well as the Malga now. It's going to be a lot of burst damage. ECAS certainly going to be feeling the pressure on this Winston. But realistically, for the rest of the squad, it's not too much. So, Pulse Bomb ends up not getting the kill there. So now you're looking for more for the side of 70S.
Yeah, they're able to attack the high ground, but how long is No Name going to be able to survive this Primal? It's forced back, but Sis goes 1 for 1. And, I mean, realistically, getting the Ray out of there is going to give them the advantage in this fight. Pegman goes down so low, though, and it's just going to be Dovahkiin playing in this Ray, trying to stay alive. Tom Mikula's doing the work, taking down No Name, and Dovahkiin is everyone against you at the moment. The Ray's in as well. The rally's just going to try and sustain them, but how much can you do? Bob's back in onto the point, and Winch, you can't keep everyone alive at the same time. The DPS line of EMC Chimera shut the doors eventually, and map 3 goes the way of map 1 and map 2, and even though it was close once again, EMC Chimera showing why they just don't give up and they don't lose these games.
Yeah, EMC coming away with another successful win here. They keep adding them up to the board. 70S, some good pieces, some good moments here and there, but overall there were just some adaptation issues of consistency, right? Constantly needing to try to be vigilant on these people flanking and things like that, and not being able to come away with, focus on it every single time. Letting that focus slip certainly was a thorn in the side there. But again, 70S, you have those opportunities still. You still got 2 more weeks. Meanwhile, EMC Chimera, the golden season is still alive right now. But still, some of those maps, some of those points, probably a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of a scare for EMC Chimera. You're not winning those games quite as handedly as you potentially would want to, but at the end of the day, you keep that unbeaten season alive. And 70S, you have the sparks there. You've just got to try and make them catch. The fire's not quite coming at the moment, but potentially against a lesser team, you could find that those sparks come to life and they're able to propel you into the playoffs. And you know that if you come up against the EMC Chimera again, you weren't able to take a map off of them, but you were able to take a lot of ground against them. None of those maps felt like it was Chimera's there to lose. It felt like it was at 70S putting the fight to them, taking the fight to them, and it's difficult to see them go out in this fashion without having lost a map when it felt not even, but about as close as you can get to it without it feeling that way.
Yeah, as we just have been getting a look back of the series, the maps played, as well as the bans, it again brings to light EMC maybe necessarily wasn't taking this as seriously here, but 70S, certainly an opponent that they probably regret that against with how close some of these were. They probably definitely felt those shakes and jitters coming along here as each, there certainly were those highlights for 70S to come in and be a menace here, but at the end of the day, all that matters is a win here, and for EMC, they get that extra win.
Yeah, and it goes onto your record. It doesn't matter how you get the win, whether it's a little bit off form, whether it's a little bit, we had to slug it out a little bit more than we thought we were, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it still goes to the win on your board, and for 70S, you look to try and get at least a bit of momentum from this game, knowing that you were up against a team that you weren't favored against, and you can see those sparks are there. It's just whether you can convert them into fight wins, into map wins against some lesser opponents that you might find in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely here, but while we could sing praises all day long, I'm sure EMC would love to do it themselves here. So we're going to throw it to a quick little break, get everything set up for an interview for y'all. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome back to CGL, where we've just seen the climax of an interesting series here with EMC Chimera winning out on the day 3-2-0, and we're joined by Octo and Psychoka. And my first question to you guys is, how does it feel to keep the ball rolling on that unbeaten season so far?
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, it's just nice.
Yeah, we feel very happy that we didn't screw it up in one of the games, that we're still unbeaten. Yeah, feels great.
Hey, listen, it feels great. Very simple. That's all you need sometimes. But looking at this series, you know, coming into it, you know, obviously you have that chip on your shoulder. You're feeling confident and things like that. As y'all played it, you know, was there anything that was thrown at y'all from the side of 7DS that like actually threw you for a loop? You're like, hold on, wait a second, what's going on here?
Some of the stuff on what's it called, Samoa, was a little bit rough, I thought, for us, just in terms of like timing. I found it a bit hard to walk forwards at times. They had a lot of like kind of just front-loaded damage flying at us. But apart from that, I think it was fine. I think Samoa was definitely the hardest map though.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think against Morgul, like today I ran it a bit. This is nothing about the enemy team. Well, I guess they played great, so I kind of ran it. But yeah, felt a bit hard for me to play. So yeah.
Listen, we're all guilty of running it down sometimes. You know, it happens to the best of us here. But looking forward at this in this series as well here, you know, we sitting in the casting booth noticed an interesting trend with y'all's bans. Were these really considered bans of high priority, or was it, let's see if we can do this without bans of significance?
I mean, our main thing is we felt like when we were playing, most characters that we would ban against them would also be banned for us. So most teams are playing Tracer, Kiri, Lucio, so we don't really want to ban any of those heroes already. Hit scan ban is like considered at times, but hit scan ban isn't that effective because there's so many of them are so similar to one another that it doesn't have much of an effect, and we want our tank to be able to play every tank in the game. So banning any of them doesn't make any sense for us. So we just thought, what characters are we definitely not going to play? And then we banned those ones. That's why we wanted to see first ban as well on first map. We gave it to them because we don't know what we want to ban.
Yeah, even so, on characters we might not necessarily play, they might not have been very good on the maps. So even if, like, for example, right, the Widow ban, we don't play Widow as often, but like, even if they played it, we wouldn't have slammed that on Samoa, even though we couldn't. I think they banned the DPS or whatever, right? So then you just need to ban something that's like empty, that's like not really a ban later on in the series for us. Anyway.
Okay, so keeping your options open more than trying to take away from their options. Interesting, but last question from me before we ask if you want to shout out anyone would be that it felt like, Psychoka, you had a tough battle against you with Sizz, the Tracer from the other team, and potentially you were getting shut down on a couple of dives. And as well, Octo, it felt like the pressure was on you as soon as potentially Psychoka might have been taken away from those Tracer 1v1s to have the pressure onto you next as that main support player. Did you guys feel some pressure from their team? Or was it just that potentially you guys had a little bit of an off day and you were able to win it out regardless?
Personally, like, the Tracer duels were like fun, but at the same time, it wasn't really my focus of like the game during this one. I didn't really want to get bogged down in Tracer duels too much, so I tried to stick away from them as much as possible because I felt like pushing backline or hit scan was more effective than getting stuck in a Tracer duel. So sometimes I lost the Tracer duel straight up, but I felt like a lot of the time I was just fighting someone else, and then it wouldn't really be a Tracer duel. It would be like the Tracer comes up from behind or whatever. I didn't really. He was very good. I think he was their best player, but it wasn't my focus of the game to get into a Tracer duel like a lot.
Yeah, I think I need to remember. I don't really think I remember it very well, to be fair. But I don't even think I was first target if there was no Tracer only on. I think the Tracer liked to go on my team a lot more than on me, which, yeah, very difficult. Maybe I messed this up, right? Because you want to put yourself between the Tracer and the hit scan, so that the hit scan can shoot the Tracer, right? Ideally. So I guess the Tracer played really well today. It's definitely the player I felt the most on the enemy team, most impact-wise. Yeah, that's as much as I can say towards that, yeah.
Well, from the player that you felt the most impact from on their team, is there anyone you would like to shout out from your team or wider in terms of your win today?
Yeah, Jake, our tank, Jake. He popped off, well, wasn't pop off, but he got a nice 1v2 at the end of New Junk City, so big props to him.
Yeah, shout out Jake. Always plays really well. My whole team played really well today, actually, as always. So, big shout out to them.
Well, congratulations to you guys winning out and keeping your undefeated record as you win 3-0 against 7DS. But for us here at CGL, we're going to look to the future and what's coming up for the rest of the day here.
Yes, indeed. Here we just finished this match at 3-0 for EMC Chimera, but like we said, and on your screens you see it, there's going to be a match in the NA side of things. Emerald Eagles, EGI Scouts, you don't want to miss it. Because again, it's more CGL action, and the weeks they're dwindling by, and we're getting closer and closer to that inevitable postseason.
Yeah, it's coming, and it's getting a lot closer than you think it is. It's going to be difficult for these teams to sort of keep the momentum there going into the playoffs that are just inevitably approaching. But is there anything else you want to add, Megalas, before we end off this stream?
No, just the usual stuff of shouting out everybody behind the scenes, our lovely producer, observer, making us look pretty and nice here on the cameras. But other than that, it's just been another day at CGL.
Yep, well, thank you guys for watching, and make sure to stay tuned with us as we head over to NA, fairly soon. But for now, we're going to love you and leave you, and once again, thank you guys for watching.